Good morning. It's a little bit slow this morning. I don't know. Since some of the people are still coming. However, we're gonna start. This is a very exciting topic, and I think a lot of us should get involved in this with discussion and giving different ideas, because there is no book to follow here. That the only thing that I would say is that if we want to be active and involved, we have to do what people do here in the United States. There are so many interest groups. There are so many people from different parts of the world who manage to get engaged with the American society, with the civil society, with the US government and the different institutions, and they created spaces of collaboration between them and other similar organizations. And since we are going to do this in the Sudanese context, I'm just going to be very frank here. And I'm not going to spare any criticism that I had accumulated through the years, because without that, without talking about the wrong practices, we won't be able to do the right thing. So one of the most important things for me that the Sudanese should stay away from is that we should stay away from doing business the same way that we've been doing it in Sudan. This is a different environment. It's a different place altogether. There are lots of organizations that I've seen here. The Jalia, for example. This is in any major metropolitan area in the United States where there is presence of Sudanese, there is an association of Sudanese diaspora or Sudanese expats that are living in that area, and we call it Jalia. And the example of the different associations like this from Washington, D.C. to New York, and these are the centers where the Sudanese were before. I think the oldest one started in Washington, D.C. in the 60s. And from that time, there is a wealth of experience. However, it is an experience of repeating the same mistakes. Unfortunately, it never came out to become an organization that is vital and vibrant, and people can rally behind it, because they brought a lot of things into the Jalia that made it ineffective. So we have to stay away from that model altogether. Doing business in the United States, and that is the business of activism, you have to think of yourself as an American organization, first and foremost. I'm not saying that people leave their Sudanese-ness, if you will, if that is a word. No. But this is a work, a type of work that is done in an environment that is dominated by a certain culture. Without thinking in that venue and without adopting that culture, you will not be able to succeed. That is number one. Number two, if you started your organization along these lines that we just talked about, then you have to be engaged with your community. You cannot do it in isolation of community. And the burden is on you to reach out to the community. It is not on the community to be part of your organization, no. The burden is on you, the person who started this organization, to reach out to the community and to bring them in. People like to hang out with the winner. If you are a winner, if you know how to do this, people will come to you. If you appeal to what they have, their senses, their sense of fear is important, because they fear things that they don't know. Their sense of belonging. They have to feel that they belong to this organization. Their sense of being important. You have to give them that feeling that you are important to me. I need you. Come in. You have to see what their aspirations are, what they aspire to do, what they want from this organization. We'll talk later about the objectives and all that. But I'm just, I'm not following a prescription here on how people do start organizations. I don't even know. I started one or two organizations with the help of others, and some failed, some were successful. But I'm just talking from that experience. I'm not following here a path or a certain prescription. I'm talking about my experiences dealing with this kind of work. So without that, people are not going to follow you. Leadership is not a walk in the park. You have to lead by example and by practice, and you let people believe in you by believing in them first and bringing them on board. So this is important. That is your community. The second community that you should reach to is similar communities within the American society. They are Cubans, they are Afghans, they are Kenyans, there are so many communities like this here. If you are in a foreign land, yes, we are in America, we became Americans, we have our children, but it's still that understanding that we are still Sudanese or Afghans or South Africans or what have you is there. So you go to the next person near to you and create that collision. The Eritreans, the Ethiopians, they are very close to us. They came to this country before us. They have wonderful organizations. I recall 1994. There was an international conference, one of the huge conferences around the world. It's called the World Economic Conference. It's like one of these, like Davos and these huge conferences. And this is an important conference because, every 4 years they have this conference in a different country. So 1994 it was in Washington, D.C. An organization sponsored me, and they paid money because the membership for individuals at the time is like $2,600, 94. That was too much money for me. Now, one of these organizations sponsored me, and they gave me a contact person. The contact person was Ethiopian. So I went there, I registered, and he did everything for me and gave me my badge. And one of the breaks, we were sitting there talking about things. And he said to me, there are so many Sudanese, and there is a quality of Sudanese here in this area, all intellectuals, university professors, stuff like that, professionals working in different, but you guys don't organize yourselves. And I started talking to him about his whole business, about this and that, and he says to me, oh, we went past this. We are now talking about different things. I will tell you what is important for you. This is 1994. He said to me, I have 50 universities in the United States that give me 4 scholarships each for the next 20 years. 50 universities. 4 scholarships. That is 200 scholarships for Ethiopians for 20 years. Can you imagine the number of Ethiopians that can graduate from there and benefit the country? That is one of the major things for me when we started working in Darfur. We started Darfur Peace and Development around 2000, 2002 when nobody was talking about Darfur. One of the major things for me at the time was to find a way to link to the universities in the United States so that they can sponsor children from Darfur. And lucky for me, I found like-minded people and a small group of kids that were in STAND at the time, Student Taking Action for Darfur. In the Georgetown University, it started something called BINA. If you go to bina.org, and they sponsored 2 kids already. They are in full scholarships, and one of them in George Washington University already graduating this year, and another kid. And if it wasn't for this financial hardship, we would have found more and more universities doing that. And it was a small organization doing this with the help of a handful of people. Can you imagine if we all, thousands of us, in different places, and some of us, I can see sitting here in front of me, members, faculty members of major universities in the United States. Some of you are heads of departments. We can think about this, and we can work together to sponsor Sudanese kids, not the ones that we raised in the United States, and my kids or yours. No, these are okay. Look for the least privileged. Those kids that are in war zones and in places like Darfur and Southern Blue Nile, and those guys who never had the chance, the opportunity of even having a nice pair of shoes to go to school, let alone getting a quality education. So this is just an example of what people have done before. And I got this experience from an Ethiopian, because they are close to us. We have the same problems, we have the same aspirations, we grew up in the same environment, if you will. They understand their problems better than other people. So if you associate yourself with groups like this, you will see your own issues reflected in what they are doing. And maybe because they were already ahead of you, they had solutions for some of the things that you already you're going through. So you draw from that experience and you move on, because you cannot fly the first day. You have to go step by step, and until you will be able to fly one day. So that is the second group that you reach out to learn from the mistakes, and also to learn about similar issues and how to deal with them. The third is going to be the American society at large. You and these people similar to you cannot do nothing until you reach out to the American society at large. And there are so many wonderful people. And you think that your issues are not important? Let me give you an example. One time I was testifying in the US Congress on one of the issues, and the chairman, I remember now, it was the divestment from Sudan and how that is important. And the chairman gave me the 5 minutes to give my introduction, and then after that, he started his questions. And he said to me, before I ask you a question, I would like to tell you a story. He said, I'm a grandfather, and one day I went to visit my daughter. I rang the bell. My grandchild, who was 4 years old, opened the door. And I said, hey, where's your mom? And he says, my mom went to Jessica school. I think that is the name of his older sister. And he continued saying, my mom went to Jessica school. They had a meeting about Darfur. 4 years old. He said to me, he never said, my mom went to school, or my mom is not here. He knows where his mom and what she is doing and what the meeting was about. 4 years old. And he said to me, if that is not making Darfur a domestic issue in the United States, I don't know what it is. Darfur became an issue in the United States that people discuss at work near the water cooler, that like people say here. And also, it is a subject in the dinner tables in so many households in the United States. When I look at this and see the opportunity that we squandered and the chance that we had, and we let it slip away, I feel sick to my stomach. I feel really, really bad, because there was not an issue in our time that had hit the airwaves and became an issue, at least in one country like the United States, in their community centers, in their civic centers, in their universities, high schools, in the football game. We had celebrities talking about Darfur. We had, athletics talking about that. You name it, across the board. Politicians everywhere. But we squandered that chance. Yes, the people who were doing their stuff there, down there in Darfur, and the rebels who are running around, they did their part to raise the voice. I was talking to Minnie one time, and he's saying, "What have you done for us?" I said, "If you think that the guns that you shot there, as big as they are and loud as they are, they were reverberating around the world and being listened to, you are wrong. We the ones who re-echoed that voice for you. And we are not supposed to talk about the civilians and military people and rebels. And we should just talk about the Sudanese, not only the Darfurians, the Sudanese in general, that is being aggrieved and ask the help of the world to correct what wrongs that we went through. That is the spirit. That is what's supposed to be the attitude. So this is just an example. If you look at the civil rights movement in the United States, if you go and look at the history of the United States, you see the civil rights movement. All the people who thought that this civil rights movement is for them reach out to the other people. Basically, and I will be candid in saying, the blacks and Latinos and colored people at the time reach out to the whites. And they work with them. Because these are universal principles of freedom and liberty. Without that, the civil rights movement would have died in the 60s in this country. Without the help of a lot of other people who are not part of the colored people. That is because people like Dr. King and others understood that you have to reach out to these same people. While other people saying, these are our oppressors. These are the people who kept us as sharecroppers for, why will you talk to them? No, you talk to them. So we have to do things differently. You have to look at the examples here. In the divestment movement against South Africa, the apartheid regime, a lot of people came together. We have to look at that example and to work to expand our horizons and to make people work with. It is the coalition of the willing. We already broke that threshold. Why? Not because we are more clever than the people who were before us, no. But because this is a different era. It's a different time. The way that we communicate today is not the way that those people communicate. Today, you can communicate with people in China. Right now, as we speak, in real time, we have the tools to do that. We are living in a very interesting time because we can communicate faster. We can communicate in different languages. There are people that I work with in Chad. My French is like not that good that will allow me to communicate with people. But now I prepare my letters or what have you and go to Google Translator and do it and send it in. And whoever person who is reading the things that I sent to them there, and some of them actually, when I went back, I go to Chad all the time and visit the Sahel in different places, different Francophone countries. They started talking to me like I was fluent in French. I wasn't, still isn't. But because there was a way for me to do that. I write my letters in English and then it's easy to translate them and send them with a few mistakes here and there. So we have a way of reaching out. We have a way of communicating. We have a way of expanding our coalition. We have a way of bringing people on board that was not ever evidence in history before. Why don't we use that? This is another tool for us to use. The experience of the Safe Darfur Coalition was amazing. 180 organizations or more coming together. Millions of members of these organizations coming together, speaking on behalf of the people of Darfur. I think a lot of people, instead of looking at that experience, with the good things that happen and the bad things that happen. There is no experience in this life that is pure, correct, and good. A lot of people, instead of coming closer and understanding that and trying to correct that, they not only stayed away, but from afar, they started criticizing this experience. We could have made use of it. We could have turned the Save Darfur Coalition, and instead of being an American organization that has other agenda like other people are assuming or even accusing Save Darfur to be, we could have won that to our side and used the same email list that reaches over 1 million people to reach out to people around the world. We could have used that experience in establishing organization, and we could have established our own parallel organization. We could have seen the work that they have reached to other people. If you have an organization today and you don't have a person that is in charge of, for example, meeting with congressional staffers and talking to congressmen in Washington, D.C., your organization is not going to go anywhere. One time I was talking to a friend who lives outside of Washington, in the Midwest. And I was talking to him and I said, listen, let us divide the work. The people in New York will be engaged with the UN. Because the UN is right there. And they are good people who know that system. There are people, the Sudanese within that system who live in New York. Let us say the people in Boston, because they have so many universities, they will be our people who will be engaged with the different universities around the United States. And let us say the people in Washington, D.C. will be the people who are solely dealing with the U.S. Congress and with the State Department, for example, and the White House. That will be their task. Because within us, among our community in Washington, D.C., living with us are people who are working in these institutions. So, and it is the proximity of that institution. I'm 16 minutes away from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. محل الرئيس بينهم الطيارة التابوت. That is where the White House is. So I can engage there better than somebody who is engaging through a phone call from Ohio. And I said to him, then let us divide this work and try to find a way of doing things. And I gave him an example, and because I know the sensitivity of the situation, I said, for example, you work with churches and other institutions raising funds and sending food items or used clothes or whatever it is. And he looked at, was talking to me and he says, so you want to be the one who get up in the morning and have your suit and tie and you go and talk to congressmen, and you want me to go and collect used clothes to take to the orphanages in Darfur? I said, no, it is not like that. You misunderstood me. It's all about division of labor. It's all about how can we become effective. How are we going to be effective? And this is at the national level, because at the time there was this craze about a Darfur Association in the United States, which I don't believe in. We can do that in the Netherlands, because the Netherlands is the size of Maryland. But in the United States, this is a continent. You cannot have that big umbrella like this. But we can have a Darfur Association in New York, we can have it in Washington, we can have representatives meeting and organizing things, and we have contact people talking to their counterparts. But we cannot have an organization and every day we have a meeting in Tucson, Arizona, or the next day we have a meeting in White Plains, New York. It's not practical. It's not going to work. We have coordination body or something, but people can divide themselves and do different things in different places, whatever is easier for you. And at the end of the day, all these rivers will end up in that ocean. Why don't we do this? Why don't we be creative in doing things different than what we وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون? It's not going to work that way. So here is what I suggest at the end, that the important thing is you find it within yourself that you want to do something. It is frustrating. It's a huge task. I know a lot of people carry this burden in their shoulders, that you wake up in the morning and you don't even know what to do. I will tell you what I did and what I still do today. It is simple, and I hope that somebody will tell me a better way. But as ignorant as I am, this is what I did to myself. I wake up every day 7 days a week, ask myself a simple question. What can I do today to make the life of one person better than yesterday? You see the task? Today, not tomorrow, not in 10 years. That is something that you can think about in the overall scheme of things. Looking into the future, into your projection. It is okay, but it starts with incremental things that you can do today, this day. And for one person, we cannot do it to a billion people, but a one person. So think of what you can do today for one person to make it better than yesterday. Because today is going to be yesterday tomorrow. It is that simple. So it means that you are going to continue doing what you have done already. And that is important. That is my second point. Sustainability. And to make it continuous. Because if I'm going to do it today, one of the things, and I'm sorry for the non-Arabic speakers, I always go to my special wave and come back. An Arab poet a long time ago said, وَلَمْ أَرَ فِي عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ عَيْبًا كَنَقْصِ الْقَادِرِينَ عَلَى التَّمَامِ. There is nothing of all the bad habits of human beings that is worse than those who can achieve something and they fell short of it. So this is the way, and that is, by the way, my just on the spot translation. It might not be very accurate. So if you can do something and do it better, why stop short of doing that? So to make it easy for yourself and to go to the logical conclusions of everything, just think of it as a task of one person, that you will do it in one day. And then it continues and it is sustained until you say, I cannot do this any longer, or you die. But make it a point. You can give it a year and say, I'm going to sponsor this thing for a year, and then I move on with my life. It is okay. But also document that or make it available to other people so that they can see and they can emulate and they can make it an example that they can follow. So the problem with this is that we don't leave anything for other people to follow. And we guard things like they are nuclear secrets. And we fail, and we are afraid of that failure that other people see. I'm happy to sit out here and talk to you about so many ways that I have done wrong, things that I've done wrong. Because I reached one conclusion. It is not that I failed, but it's the way that I experienced so many ways not to do it this way. It is not about failure. You can admit that you failed. It's okay to admit failure. But then you look at it from your perspective as something that you tried so many ways to do this thing and it didn't work. So you eliminate this. You don't do it again. And please document it for other people so that they don't do it also. And work with them and exchange these ideas so that they will move away from it. We can talk more as the questions and comments come on. But remember one thing. You might think that you are doing this thing for other people. Actually, you are doing it for yourself. Because without these other people, you are not going to be yourself.